order the trustees Education and Planning Committee on February 1st at 4:30. I think it's about 4:30. First item, review of the minutes from January 4th. Are there any additions, deletions, corrections, edits? Hearing none, we'll move on. Dr. Urbatus will do an enrollment report update.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Carol. Nice to see all of you. So I'm going to give you an enrollment update as of January 27th, which is the first Friday of the spring semester. In your packet, your report included numbers as of January 20th. So winter session, the information you received for winter session remains the same. We ended up in terms of total credit enrollment at 3.1% headcount and 0.6% FTE. Any questions about winter before I move on? Okay, so spring, as of January 27th, overall enrollment is down 1.7%, so not a lot of vacillation from the 20th. And however, in terms of FTE is down 0.8%, which moved the needle in a positive direction from the 20th when we were down 2.3% in FTE.
That down?
One area of interest.
I'm sorry,
Go
is
ahead,
that down or up?
Down 0.8%.
Okay, it looked like it was a positive 0.8.
Oh, that's less down.
Less
Less down.
Less down, that's right. We moved, so we were down 2.3% as of the 20th. And we moved in a positive direction where we are now down 0.8%.
Yeah.
Okay, I also want to point out that in terms of population, subpopulations, returning student population was one of the factors in terms of positive numbers. A year ago, when you look at returning student numbers, we're up 35.2% overall for full and part-time returning. And I looked into this a little bit further with the assistance of our AVP of Enrollment Management, Michael Fisher. And we have 20 students enrolled in the Return to Finish and Debt Deferral Program this spring in comparison to 3 students last spring. So that's positive. As well as we had 4 former students return based on the transcript hold removal because their balance owed was less than $500, which is also a positive. So any questions?
Any questions for Dr. Abate?
Awesome.
Sounds good. Thank you, and thank your team.
I will. Thank you back.
And move on to student success. Sarah Whiffen, love moving the needle. Time.
Thank you again. Hello, I will speak loudly. It's hard for me. I'm pleased to come back tonight to talk a little bit about the first term project that we've spoken about pretty much since last spring through fall of 23 and some lessons that we've learned about moving the needle and moving forward. So thank you so much for allowing us. Okay. So where do I find? Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, it's a little slow. It'll drag in the winter a little bit. So I realized that we realize that we're not actually moving in the best direction when it comes to our first term students, our first time students, excuse me. In the fall of 21, we had 383 out of 1344, or 28% not return for spring of 22. And this fall, we had 395 out of 1282 not returned. So our percentages went up because our population, of course, was a little smaller. But 380 to 395, not exactly an enormous head count jump, but certainly something that we don't want to see. So when looking at the data, I just wonder, where am I supposed to point to, June? Okay. We realize there are a few commonalities of students that are walking away from the institution. The first one is that 31% of the students, sorry, I changed my slide a slightly bit, sorry. 95 out of the 395 received all Fs. This is the green box in the middle. Okay, so of the 31% that did not return, we have 24% getting all Fs.
Sir,
Yeah,
comment.
yeah,
When I saw that, I was really horrified. You can't really expect somebody that's gonna get 4 or 5 Fs, that they're probably gonna return.
right.
And then the other side of that is, how are we really gonna remediate somebody?
Yep. Got a plan.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a plan.
Okay.
We've got a plan with some tried and true trends that other schools have seen and used, and they're benchmarked, and we think we can move the needle, right? We will never get 100%,
All right.
let's be honest, but we can at least move the needle. So the other piece was, there was a almost 40% registered right before the start of the term. Again, not that we're gonna ever stop that, right? But we can do some things differently to hopefully impact that. And then, of course, I just wanted to show modality because, of course, over the last couple of years, modalities played a much larger role, online, in person, et cetera. And we see that 63% of the students of the 395 that didn't return were completely online. That's a harder group to in perhaps herd, if you will, right? It's a harder group because they're not here. They're not physically on campus. So we're going to have to work differently than ever before. And very few were completely in person of that 395. So again, to your point, we have to be creative. We have to think differently, and we have to be strategic. A few other components. 47% were placed on financial aid warning. We know our population, if they go on warning and they're on academic probation, again, how do you get them out of that hole that they've already built themselves into? 95% of those students on academic probation had financial aid impacts as well. So those tend to go together. We know that. That's not surprising, but we need to influence it. Only 30% attended orientation. We know orientation is so important in starting students off the right foot, right? And that we have to get them here, to get them to understand. And by here, I don't mean physically, I just mean start to talk to them. And so we know orientation is a tried and true way to start that conversation, start those connections, start the feeling of belonging. So why does this matter? Well, if that first slide shocked you, I bet this one shocked you a little bit more. $2.5 million didn't return. And thanks to our friends in administration and finance, we were able to actually put a number towards students and what we lose if they don't return for a semester from their first term to the next semester. And so few return. We've been doing now 5 terms of data, and they don't return, right? Like if they don't come back the next term, they're very unlikely to return. So we need to keep them in the door. We need to keep them enrolled. So $5,900 if they don't come from term 1 to term 2, and we lose also almost $500 in marketing. Because, we got to go out and market for more students, and that's always more costly. So $2.5 million. So what are we going to do differently? Well, here we have it. This is where it comes in. We have known for a while, we have to change the trajectory. We have to do things differently to stop the students from walking away. We have 4 things that we're already doing, but we have to get better at doing them, and we have to be more thoughtful about doing them. The first one is the new student intake form. We've been asking students to take this, but thanks to technology and some other pieces, we haven't required it. We need to start requiring it at the time before they register, right between when they register and school starts. We have to have a little bit more data on the students so we can do that outreach right away. Famous one from this past fall, a student who registered in June or July, I can't remember which, but it wasn't right at the beginning. First gen, moving from New York City, mostly online, moving into the suites. We called that student to talk about preparation. He said, I'm bringing my desk, or I'm not bringing my computer because it's a desktop. And my coach said, but wait, what do you mean? You're enrolled in 3 online classes. What are you going to do the first couple of weeks? Oh, I'll use my mobile phone. That's not a good idea. Why don't you just bring your desktop, move it in, get your laptop when you get your financial aid reimbursement, great use of it. In the meantime, you can also come and use our Wi-Fi here and do work. But that student was not going to bring their desktop. So that student may have been sitting over in the suites, not being able to fully engage perhaps, or know that we have a lab they could go to, etc. But it's those kinds of intentional conversations we need to start having to help them understand what they're walking into. Starfish. We know we have Starfish. We know it gives us great data on how to reach out to students when they're struggling, because the students may not know they're struggling, but we do. So we need to use that as robustly as possible. We have the chatbot, Flick. Flick tells us when students are struggling, and they talk to us, but we need to continue to use that. And we are starting to do that. And we know that we have lots of resources on campus and options, telemedicine, etc. We just know students don't always know about them. We hammer it all the time, but they don't always know. So we need to make sure that we're doing all those 4 things in combination with number 5, which is what's new and what we're going to do, which is called PACE, Persistence and Completion to Excellence. The big piece is we're going to take all of these pieces that we just talked about and have folks dedicated to using and pushing in to the student's experience at the get-go. Also, a 7-week non-credit required is a little R because it's not required with the big R. There will be ways, there will be students that don't connect with our workshop series, but we're going to have PACE workshops that are designed for that first term student that when they're registering, we're going to just register them because they very often don't push back. And that course is designed to coach students through what does it mean to be a college student. So we have this thing called Brightspace, but how do you navigate it? How do you know where to find your grades? Or if an instructor is using all grades at the 0 and they start accumulating points, or are they losing points from 1,000, right? Like there's all these grading differences that students don't know about. How would they? So we want to talk through that. Or it's progress survey time with Starfish. Do you know how to navigate Starfish? Do you have your financial aid in? It's almost time for aid packages to be dispersed and excess aid to be dispersed. How are you going to use it? Maybe not going out and buying something extravagant. Maybe you don't have a laptop. Maybe you can use that. So these are very consistent workshops that we know will make a difference to the students because they'll start to learn the language that we don't have in way right now. It also will work beautifully and seamlessly with FY and FYS because it will allow those faculty to actually teach different pieces. They don't have to teach the framework, the basic building blocks, if you will, of the college. We'll start to do that. So faculty can use those FYE and FYSs to perhaps teach other things or go further in depth with something, you know, about being a conservation student, that they were taking up time on how to navigate bright space. So we're not fully there yet, but we're getting there. And we really believe that this workshop series will make a big difference in the student experience. And so thanks to Dr. Nye setting aside some funding, we have hired we just offered an individual to come help us be the assistant director for student success. And that individual will lead the coaches to do this project work. We will hire a coach or two and redeploy some folks on campus to assist us. And we think that we can pilot this, if not go full force. We're still working on data with Deborah Ortloff's area to figure out what's the way we can manage it. But we are looking at a big pilot. We have 600-700 students probably being in the pilot based on what we can do with a cohort. And we really feel like this is going to help us start to move that needle of students walking away after their first term. And the next slide would, and so bringing all these pieces together, bringing back the early intervention, the intake form, the PACE project, the Starfish and Flickbot, we really feel like we'll start to hit the target in the middle and start to move the needle on retention. Questions?
Questions?
Sure.
I love the workshop. It's great. My only question is, how would you run them? Would you ask the students to come in after classes at a certain time? Would it be online, on their free time?
Actually, it's going to be scheduled.
Okay.
So when a first term student fills out their schedule, it would be a course. It would be listed on their schedule. So it just will run 7 weeks. So they'll sign up for what's most convenient. We will have online, we will have in person, we'll have them at the campus center. Like they, you know, students will have that choice. Absolutely. Sure.
Applaud the early intervention workshops and making them required. I think that's wonderful. My concern is Starfish, and that's an early warning system that doesn't require a coach or anything else. It's with their faculty, and the faculty shouldn't come as a surprise to the faculty that they're tracked for an app early. So I'm kind of wondering what's not working there.
I wouldn't say it's not working. I think one of the pieces that faculty have struggled with historically on Starfish is what's happening when I do this? When I raise this flag, what's happening?
Right,
Because it's valuable time we're asking faculty to give feedback.
absolutely.
And again, most of our students get kudos and good responses, and that's great. Up until now, our responses have been by folks who have other jobs. So, you know, it's a lot of, the online learning team is responding to students at the same time they're trying to fix problems or what have you. We have our academic advising office who is trying to enroll students still while also responding and triaging. And so we haven't had folks whose sole job is dedicated to responsiveness to the retention efforts we have on campus. So I wouldn't say it's not working. I just think it hasn't.
So if I could clarify, what you're saying is that you're often getting the message, but there's nobody. So the call goes into the doc or to the emergency room, but there's nobody there to.
Right, we have to triage at this point, right? The most severe cases.
Yeah,
So we're not able to deploy ourselves
I see.
as perhaps as well as we could. And that's the hope, is that by having 3 to 4 people, we can truly be the outreach effort, truly follow these people and be their coach, right, for that first term specifically. We're not getting rid of advisors, right? The coach is going to say, okay, you might need to go see your academic advisor because you know, you're in need of something, like you want to change your major. You don't want to be an art student anymore. You want to be a business student. That's not something the coach will do. But the coach will be able to sit there in the first term and say, But just not going to class is not gonna work. Like, you gotta change these behaviors. Getting all Fs isn't gonna work. Let's talk about what a withdrawal might look like.
All right,
So these pieces.
that's great.
Yeah.
I appreciate the clarification.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just
Trustee Martin.
first of all, thank you. And this, your effort sounds exciting. My question is, of the 12 or 1,300 we lost in the recent year, are some just shut down and there's no communication? That percentage might be,
I think that's our all Fs. I mean, it's really hard to get all Fs if you're still going to
Right.
class, and still trying to do things. So that was not, I mean, out of the 400 or so, 95
Right.
got all Fs. So I think that that's the percentage that just stopped.
you still have 75+% that you still have some communication where there's at least a window or an opportunity.
Yeah.
So those 95 might just be literally lost.
I mean, unfortunately, I don't
It's
know.
not that we're not trying.
Right, I don't know the secret of how to keep every student that enrolls in
Right.
college, and if I did, I probably need to become a consultant somewhere.
Right.
But, I really feel like this is best practices, right? It's taking what we can do here at the college, identifying good best practices that are somewhat tried and true in the industry, and figuring out how to apply them here for our students, because our students are unique. They're different than students that go other
Sure.
places. So we just have to find that nice magic, that Goldilocks place that's gonna give us the best bang for our buck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just some observation, because I'm still letting all these numbers roll around in my head even after a week. When I was looking at these numbers, I was relating it back to enrollment.
Mhm.
Where, we're always fluctuating, usually downward, but only by 1%. And if, in the raw numbers, that's not many people. In
Right.
some cases, it's few as 20.
Mhm.
So if this makes a dent, even a very modest dent, we should be able to stabilize the enrollment, if not grow it a little bit.
It's my hope.
The other observation is, we were talking about folks shutting down, so, they sign up to come and then they just don't. So we're talking about trying to cure that, if you will. I was thinking about, do we have anything in our admissions system that would tell us that certain students just plain aren't ready and really shouldn't try?
So I think there's two questions you're actually asking. And we have something called verification roster. It comes out of the enrollment management side of the house. And it asks faculty, I believe at the third week of school, if a student has just not shown up. So those students who sign up and then just clearly haven't shown up are not this population we're talking about. Those students are kind of
Okay.
backed out.
Okay.
These are students that made it past that portion and are here and making it through. So it's a little bit of a different population. Like they made it through, they participated in the beginning somewhere to show that they were actively trying to be part of our community. The question about they're not ready or they find college overwhelming or what have you, my hope is that by having the coaches be able to reach out to those students in different places, we can navigate those conversations. Anecdotally, I've had conversations with students who realize college is not for them about 8 weeks in, and that's okay. Do they know about our workforce development? Do they, what is it about college that they're not happy about? Maybe it's really more the program they're in. And why did they choose that program? I don't. Who knows?
They don't know.
And that's been inevitable in my 30+ year career, right? Students chose a major because their father was that, or their mother was that, or they like teaching, or they want to be a nurse, but they hate blood. Not going to be good at a nurse if you do not like blood. So
Okay.
we have to just keep working with students and help them understand what their options are.
Okay, and then my other question is, first of all, all these numbers are, analysis is great. And the same for enrollment. You know, we have better information and more information where we do this. And that's great. My question is, do we know what the distribution of the 12 or 1,300 is over academic programs or departments?
Yes, we do.
Is, what kind of distribution is that?
I will throw this to Deborah.
So what we would want to see when we're looking at if there's we're always looking for like a hot spot or a silver bullet or something like that, right? Like, oh my goodness. We're obviously struggling, and we're not, but I'm just gonna say psychology, right? What's going on? Let's have this conversation. We're clearly disproportionately losing students in psychology, particularly in the first term. But by and large, what we see is there's not that trend. It's not program specific. The biggest variable that pops, the biggest variable that we just continue to come back to is the first term status. There is some commingling of things like, you know, race or first generation status, so things that already put a student at higher risk can have a bit of an impact, but overall, the biggest risk factor is first term status. And then from each term subsequent to that, there's less of a risk factor. So if we keep that student from first term to second term, we're more likely to keep them obviously beyond that. But if we get them into the third term, we're much more likely to graduate them than we are than actually when compared to our peers. We graduate at a much better level compared to our peers. So that's sort of the biggest variable that we need to look at as we start monitoring this in ways that haven't been monitored before. That could change, right? As we pull a lever on PACE projects, we might see that helps students in some areas more than others. So this conversation a year from now might be, hey, we moved this needle and it really helped in this area, but now, oh, that human services program, you know, let's have that conversation. But as of right now, program is not a variable that is particularly impactful for making.
Any other questions from the trustees? Thank you very,
Thank you.
thank you very much. This is great stuff. Honestly, we are getting light years ahead of where we've been in the past. This is really positive. We have a resolution ahead of us to approve an amendment to the Finger Lakes Area School Health Plan / Municipal Cooperative Agreement. Someone from the HR staff for that?
Is she coming through?
Actually not talking now.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, great. It's wonderful to see all of you again, and thank you to Dr. Knive for the opportunity to bring this resolution to all of you. You have in your packet a memo and resolution to approve a revised version of the Flash P Municipal Cooperative Agreement. And you'll all recall that prior to July 1st, 2022, we had multiple plans within that consortium. We had our medical plans, dental plans, and Medicare Advantage plan within the consortium. We did exit for our medical and dental plans effective July 1st, excuse me, July 1st of 2022. However, we have approximately 15 to 20 participants, retirees who remain in that Medicare Advantage plan. They are not current employees of the college, and they're not covered by the college's collective bargaining agreements. However, New York general municipal law does require the consortium to renew those agreements every 5 years. So what you have in your packet is the revised agreement that the Flash Board of Directors has developed. And in order for those participants that FLCC still has in the consortium to remain in that Medicare Advantage plan, we're asking for you to approve the municipal cooperative agreement this evening. Are there any questions about this?
Trustee Martin?
Yes, Michelle, thanks for the proposal. When does this end then? You said 5 years. Does this get backdated to 2018 and it expires this year, or is it 5 years begins anew?
5 years begins anew.
Does.
Mhm.
So it would be February 1 of 23 until 28?
It doesn't mean that we're committed for 5 years. It just means that the consortium has a municipal cooperative agreement that governs the operation of the consortium. And every member organization has to approve that agreement, that says how the consortium will operate. If we wanted to withdraw from that Medicare Advantage plan, there are terms and bylaws that the consortium has, and we used those last year when we withdrew from the medical and dental plans. So we would not be committed for the 5-year term. It's just they have to review their operating agreements at least every 5 years according to New York law.
And one final question. This group of 15 to 20, they're grandfathered in already? Do you expect that number to grow as other retirees come aboard?
No, because as new retirees are leaving the organization, we're offering them retirement options through our new broker. They have a Medicare specialist, and she actually sources better options for them than what this Medicare Advantage plan provides.
I'm good. I support. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Martin. Other questions from the trustees? Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, thank you.
And finally, we'll move on to a strategic thought presentation on college grants. Mary Beth Phillips.
Hi, everybody. I'm Louis Nosey. You'll be seeing Mary Beth in a minute. I just wanted to start this off with to the grants presentation, because I think we have a unique opportunity here to share some real interconnectedness within our advancement operations, between our government relations operation and our grants operation. It happened in real time last week. We were starting to put this together, so we thought we did. I talked about that really briefly before we Mary Beth gives you a full picture if you just go on. So we have sort of quietly and not quietly worked really hard to establish deeper relationships with all of our federal representatives, specifically Chuck Schumer's office. And it was probably about a year ago that the senator's office said, any federal grant you apply for, we will write you a letter of support. This is not the first one. This is just the latest one that his office has made. Some will say that, wow, Louis, it's great that you wrote this letter for them. They write this. We don't really give them much. We just tell them what we're applying for, and they put it together. They send, give us a copy. It's been a tremendous help in our operation. And this is where it goes even further. Last week, I'm minding my business in my office, and Schumer's office calls me out of the blue and wants to know if FLCC would like to apply for a massive federal workforce grant. And their response was, the first place we thought it was FLCC and your advanced manufacturing. So as Rob always says, step by step. We are yet to find out if it's going to make a difference, but we feel like it can't hurt to have the majority leader of the U.S. Senate advocating for us. There's only a certain amount of institutions in America that can say that. And I think it's just the beginning of what we could do. So that's my preamble. Before I introduce Mary Beth, I just want to say a couple of things. I want you to keep in mind while she talks to you that Mary Beth Phillips started just over 1 year ago. She started in January of 2022. And I want you to think about, as she goes through our activity and how far we've come in 1 calendar year, the level of work and precision that has gone into it. I knew when we were bringing Mary Beth Phillips on board, we were hiring a pro. I did not know we were bringing on an all-star. She is a gifted strategic thinker, gifted grant writer, and I am thankful every day she's here. And I think you're going to enjoy everything she has to talk about. So Mary Beth, please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm a little nervous, so please bear with me.
Oh, we're
I haven't
fine.
done a presentation since I interviewed for this job, so. Since we started all of this work, one point of emphasis has been made over and over again, and that was we need a hub for the grants area. Coming out of the pandemic, there was a need for organization and oversight where everything else had fallen apart for so long. So the first thing that we did was start a new grant process and a new grant request form. So that enabled us to streamline the process and still allow people to identify grants that they wanted to apply for or ideas for grants that they wanted to apply for. Things that could help their program, their department, or the college overall. This process has not been easy to implement, but change is often difficult, so we're working through it. We jumped right in and started to apply for all types of grants. Some of the federal grants include the Perkins 5, the TRIO Upward Bound Math and Science, and we're even a sub-awardee of UCLA's application to the Department of Energy. Additionally, for the first time, FLCC applied for congressional earmark funds for our horticulture education complex, formerly known as the greenhouse. We are not allowed to call it the greenhouse anymore. Made it to the Senate Appropriations Committee. And while we didn't make the final cut, we have been strongly encouraged to apply again.
Excuse me, did you find that to be bipartisan in terms of when it got to the Appropriations Committee?
I'm not really
Just
sure.
curious, just curious.
I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you, just from speaking with Schuman's representative last week, I quizzed him on this. And I said, what do we have to do to make a stronger application? It was a very standard line. It was a very competitive process, Lewis. And I said, okay, I know. But he goes, well, you're going to be at the top of the list because all the other ones that got it are not going to be there. His words, this project, we're supportive of this project. We like this project. So.
Did it come out of committee or it stayed in committee? It never got to the floor.
No. Okay, fine.
Curious, thank you.
We also did a number of SUNY and Empire State Development grants, including 2 pay for performance, say that 3 times fast, grant applications that were due in December. One was a collaborative effort with our Workforce and Career Solutions Department. The second was a capital grant for our Smart Systems Technology program. We were able to write a successful bid to convert a room at our Newark Campus Center to enable computerized testing for our GED program. We also have equipped the majority of the Sands Family Center for Allied Health and developed curriculum for a new LPN program through the SUNY Nursing Emergency Training Funds. Currently, we're partnering with the Urban League of Rochester to promote pathways from non-credit to credit for students of color using SUNY REACH funding. In addition to the state and federal grants, we've also squeaked in a couple of private ones, including ESL Federal Credit Union. They awarded us $100,000 for student emergency services. We also have an Aspire grant that's going to allow Nazareth students to come to campus and shadow a STEM instructor. They're going to have an opportunity for a student teaching experience and hoping that we can attract more STEM instruction at the community college level. Of the 16 grants for which we applied for in 2022, we've been awarded 8. That's a 50% rate of success. But we still have 5 that haven't been reviewed yet. So we have the potential for an 81% rate of success for all applications that were written through the Office of Grants Development. All along, Dr. Nye and most of the key cabinet members have ensured that we know exactly where the college's priorities lie. A stronger relationship with Ontario County is at the top of the list, along with opportunities to work with Wayne County and other counties. The horticulture education complex, the child care center, and student support services are always a top focus. This is my favorite slide, and I'm going to tell you why. 11 days ago, we submitted a $3 million application for the Department of Labor Nursing Expansion Grant. We increased our chances for success by submitting an application as a lead agency, but also as an educational partner for URMC and Rochester Regional Health. This grant is ultra competitive and it's open to a large number of applicants, not just community colleges, not just colleges. So partnering with other entities in our area was a strategic move. Last Saturday, we submitted a $1 million USDA distance learning and telemedicine grant. It involves 11 area school districts. It promotes the sharing of concurrent enrollment opportunities. It also opens up the districts to access by community members for online learning opportunities and telehealth visits. This is the historical breakdown of awards over the last 3 years. Excuse me. We did apply for Title III and the USDA Distance Learning and Telemedicine Grant during this time. However, they were not successful. In 2022, we've been able to increase our grant awards by 146%. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to present. I know I've thrown a lot of information in a very short amount of time, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
One question, and that is, based on your experience to date, whether you think the process is more successful at the federal level or at the state level, or do you find one to be much more complicated than the other?
The federal grants are always more complicated. They're also much more competitive. We do have a lot of SUNY opportunities, and we're very grateful for those. They also make sure not to award to the same schools over and over again. So last year we applied for every SUNY grant that we came across. I think we might be a little more selective this year based on what we've been awarded.
Okay. And then just an observation, and that is, I really, given my background, I really appreciate the fact that you're going after earmarks as opposed to just competing for grants from institutions or departments.
I did fail to mention that in joint effort with that, we're also going to go for a consolidated funding application.
Okay, good. Well, and that was the other comment was, I appreciate the strategy of trying to find partners as part of the process for the grant application, because I think that enhances it.
There are a lot of
Substantial.
grants that show favor to consortium applications.
Yeah.
Jeff, one of the things with that Department of Labor, I think is a great example. Because we knew it was going to be so competitive, trying to find ways to make us more competitive. That makes sense. And here, she said we could partner with agencies because everyone in the region was fun. So we were engaging up to be far ahead and back on those partners. So the way we look at that, we created 3 opportunities instead of 1. And if we don't get awarded as a lead agent, RMC gets awarded, we're in. We're in. We'll get something. If one of these 3 entities, line gets that.
Is the DOL through ETA?
No.
Which,
I'm not sure, but it was not listed as an ETA grant.
okay, that's fine.
There is one coming up, that we're hoping the county will apply for, in conjunction with our workforce development, for solutions.
Right.
That is an ETA grant for growth opportunity. That's due in March.
Okay, good. Yeah, could you until probably this summer?
Can you forward me that piece of or that document that you were wanting the Ontario County folks to want?
The RFP?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
It is actually, there are two. It was a second round last year, and apparently they did not get enough applicants.
Mhm.
So they did a quick go round only for a certain type of applicant, and I can't remember what it is, but Ontario County, we cannot apply. County can, local or state municipality.
If you send me that information, I'll keep track of it and make sure that something's happening.
Thank you.
I have two comments. One is, for a number of years, we had some NSF grants, high visibility, high dollar amount. I'm just curious what the status of working with NSF is again.
We currently have a no-cost extension for 2 years for an NSF C. Curry grant. We also did a consortium application with SUNY Poly in November. Ryan McCabe headed that up regarding our online engineering program. We're just waiting to hear on that one.
Okay.
We have been asked by Schumer's office to apply for an NSF ATE grant, and we're going to start working on that right away.
Oh, great. Okay.
I have been told that it takes a good 6 months to submit a competitive application.
Thank you. And my second comment was, thank you for keeping the horticulture project alive.
We've affectionately named it the Heck.
What the heck?
My question was, are you going to enhance that with, are you considering, what's the word I'm looking for? Following up on Jeff's comment about partnering with other groups for that?
I don't think we've gotten that deep into the discussions yet.
Okay, thanks.
I did, yeah. I'm with the CFA, the Consolidated Funding Act. Have you ventured in or looked into large foundations? I think of Mackenzie Scott, just a recent piece on NPR where she's resetting her priorities early January this year going forward. She rarely gives interviews, but did in this case, and let it known that voices that are underserved and underserved communities are going to be her priority for the foreseeable future. May not seem like a large statement, but we've heard maybe 2 or 3 statements from her in the last 4 or 5 years, so it was fairly significant. I'm just wondering if that kind of shoot, our own Rochester United Way received 20 million from Mackenzie, what now, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and that was, a bit of a shot in the dark. So why not us, or even maybe a partnership? I'm just curious if through that CFA, you're able to enable that to some large foundations.
It's a definite possibility. We haven't, last year we did submit for the CFA and we did not get it,
Okay.
even though we were anticipating the earmark funds and that fell short as well. But we'll look into any opportunity that comes available to us.
Yes, Steve, I've also tasked the team for the end of this fiscal year, when we've had that following fiscal year. Maybe concerted effort in private foundations, like you're talking about. It's one of the areas we have not quite scratched the surface yet. So
He has, Bree and I have a project that we're working on to get more of it.
Well, what was unique about United Way was a single agency, obviously representing, 1,500 different recipients, but we're representing a large student base. And so there's some similarities there, and it was a total surprise, just a total shock, and the fact that she's not limited geographically either. doesn't mean there couldn't be another 5 million coming, let's say, our way at some point, but, there's foundations out there, I'm just curious, and those are incredible percentages. I mean, 5, 10, 15% success rates are common. You're at 50+%, so kudos, really nice job, thank you on our behalf. Really appreciate it, yeah, fine work.
Other questions, trustees? So I have a couple quick ones. Overhead, how much do you build in typically to these? Overhead for
It
the college?
depends. The upper bound math and science, there was so much programming that was mandatory that we had zero indirect costs. For the Department of Labor and Nursing Expansion, we have $896,000 built in. For the Department of Energy, our portion was small, 112,900, I believe. So it was more like 24,500. We did for the first time include indirect costs for our Perkins grant. However, for most grants, we were allowed up to 43.2% indirect costs. For Perkins, we're allowed 5%.
Yeah,
So we're limited, but we have been doing a better job at including those in our application.
yeah, I was with a nonprofit and, you know, if we could get 15%, it was wonderful, but it'll kill you after a while if you don't have the overhead to be able to run it.
We went up to 30% in the nursing expansion grant, but what was required for the programming really dug into it, but we got as much as we could.
Yeah. And Lumina, what are we doing with Lumina? And is Jamie Marcella still there? Is he retired?
Huh?
Yeah,
We did a Lumina $1 million challenge that we did not successful with.
Okay.
But as they become available, Todd in Workforce and Career Solutions, he does a lot with Lumina funding. And we are separate departments, but there is a lot of overlap, and we do a lot of collaborative grant writing.
and I assume I can speak for the trustees. Anytime we can sign a letter or what have you for a grant where that can aid in that, we probably can't wait for the opportunity to put a pen to paper on that,
Thank you.
so.
I will hold you to that. USDA Distance Learning and Telemedicine, we had 61 letters of support. Students,
That's fine.
teachers, parents,
Wow.
instructors, and
It
administrators
matters.
here at FLCC at all of the 11 school districts, BlackRock, Finger Lakes Counseling, Family Counseling Services of the Finger Lakes, and a couple of other community-based organizations.
Yeah, that matters. That's great.
It's clear you've had success from a government relations standpoint. Is that continuing on other levels in terms of state and federal, even local?
I only get to contact them via email.
Okay.
Louis and Dr. Nye are the ones who get to meet them in person.
So we did have a really great opportunity to meet our new Congresswoman, Claudia
Oh,
Tenney.
Tenney.
Dr. Nye and I,
Yep.
2 weeks ago. Yes. But it was perfect to, once again, step by step, we're building the right connections to get us in those rooms at the beginning. There must have been less than 30 people there, and we were part of it.
Yeah, we're on the western side of her territory, right?
We're right in the middle.
Oh, are we?
It goes from, interesting district, from Lockport all the way
I didn't
down, so
realize
it's all population center, us, east, and then almost to Watertown. Skips every population center. So Dr. and I had an immediate connection with her. She is going to be on, she announced it at our meeting on Ways and Means, which is a big.
Huge.
So we're working that. In fact, Dr. and I are going to Rochester tomorrow to meet with our state delegations, and we're doing our individual visits right now. So that's ongoing.
So today's budget announcement by the governor, since we're talking government, but I hear there's going to be a rollout throughout the state of that budget that's coming to the Rochester area. And I'm just curious if you have any reaction to today's budget. See, there's some dollars set aside for higher education and secondary education. No, okay.
I apologize, I have not.
No, that's right. It was new today. Just curious, but
It's late.
there is going to be a rollout. I see they're starting already over the next 2-3
We're
weeks.
up tonight for a meeting tomorrow.
Great. Nice work.
Just one more comment. At least for me, it's been a real eye opener. Appreciate the effort. So what I would suggest is that periodically you decide when Come back and report to us on,
Are you making
Yeah.
this again?
yes.
It's easier over time.
You know, successes and failures, it's okay. Whether that's once a year or twice a year, whatever it is.
I think I'm slated for once a year.
Okay, that's good.
We'll
Thank
let you
you.
know.
If there's something big, you guys will be the first to know.
Hey,
Thank
Beth,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, outstanding.
Great.
And on that high note, take a motion to adjourn the Education Planning Committee meeting.
So moved. Santa.
Thanks, Santa. Second,
Second.
Donna, thank you.
All right, we will close the Education and Planning Committee meeting, and we'll now move on to Trustee Martin and the Finance Committee meeting.
Absolutely, thank you. Here, guys. Call to order the February 1st, 2023 Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. We had minutes from January 4th. Thank you, Penny, for those. Any changes or corrections to the committee minutes from last month? That means they were perfect. Nice job. Okay. Ken, might you update us on the budget? Finance? And maybe facilities as well?
Yes, thank you.
Please and thank you, yeah.
Somewhat more informal today, but with regards to performance, sort of as budgeted, as planned, really nothing significant changing much on our year-to-date performance. We're budgeted a loss is mitigated by labor shortages, and that's continuing, although we're starting, fortunately, part of my report is fortunately doing some hiring, in particular in the finance area, which I'm very grateful for. It's very short. We've got a bursar coming in within 30 days. We're interviewing a solid candidate tomorrow for an associate controller. That's good news. Staying for a student accounts position. It's just getting open now. But anyways, that's encouraging because we've been short there, and it's kind of, it's hard to get some work done with a shortage of resources when we got to deal with students. They come first, and that's been us putting stress on us. So I think we're continuing on. I'm seeing, one of the action items I took was try to take a look to see if we were going to have some savings on the healthcare side. It doesn't look like it. I mean, we did a reset on the healthcare, and it looks like that's going to be coming in close to budget. The one area that we'll have a little more savings probably than was anticipated might be down in the supplies and expense. And we'll have more information for you. I don't want to get too far into the budget process because I believe we're scheduled for the retreat to spend some time talking about the budget. And now, as part of the budget, we need to look a little deeper at the year to date, because the year that's going to inform our budget for next year. I'm seeing us budget at higher numbers than we're actually coming in at. Seeing that here, and so we need to be aware of how we roll that forward next year. And a lot of it's flavor, but we'll have more on that. But budget process has started internally. We're just now receiving budget information coming in. We've asked for no new positions to be added. The two positions that were referenced earlier today, the PACE positions were grant funded from the president's strategic grant monies, but we are not expecting to see new positions being added. We're hoping that people will juggle positions within those vacancies that we have as we have needs. We're expecting to see that. More to follow, but overall, the whole year's holding up, and as you heard, enrollment's holding up a little bit. So maybe that's all good news. So from a financial standpoint, the ship is steady. Should feel good about that. The audit, taking longer than we had hoped, but taking less time than it has in the past, let's say. We're getting closer and closer.
We're still slated for March.
I think that March 1st date to review with the board, we will have, I'm hoping we will have the preliminaries to the finance committee, but not the final to the board.
Okay, right.
That's that's the timing that I'm thinking we're we wanted to get a final to the board. That would have meant a preliminary in 3 weeks. It's not, that preliminary is not gonna happen in 3 weeks. We're not taking our foot off the gas at this point.
Well, that's still good from a timing standpoint,
Yeah,
with
it's-
Dr. Nye and Jeff here, but we've had as late as May, June, so we're okay.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
we should be
Well,
doing
that's not gonna happen. I'm looking at that March 1st date as
Yeah,
the
prelim.
preliminaries
Good.
for the finance committee to take a look at. So people wise, budget wise, you'll hear more at the retreat in terms of where we are for the budget next year. I've asked all the departments to make a small reduction in the operating expenses. And it's gonna all be targeted back here on this area, and there's ample place for them to squeeze a little bit on their operating expenses. There, I haven't heard from ones yet, we saw them today. Resources for next year. People are coming out of a scarcity mode. It's a couple years in. Yeah, from a finance standpoint, that's good. From an operating standpoint, that's a.
Questions of Ken thus far? Any questions at all? Just had one from an account receivable standpoint. We're within range, within budget. Any concerns about people not paying us
No, no, we don't.
or
And
recovery?
we did increase the threshold for students rolling into the next semester at the request of the state. It was a good move. But I haven't seen it move our receivables, but I need to do, I'll report back to you on the next, at the next time we get together, with a little more visibility on the accounts receivable.
From a revenue standpoint, any delay in terms of our funding streams and folks are still within their timeframes?
It is all within the timeframe.
Okay.
We have we have stimulus monies that we haven't pulled yet.
Good.
And that'll be a big help. They're not reflected here.
Great.
We
Good.
still have 3 or 4 months, but that's delayed caused by our part, not by the government's part.
Okay. Before he gets to facilities, final question on finance or budget. Facilities.
Yep, things are proceeding with regards to the facilities master plan. They're gonna be very active, I think, over the next 3 weeks with meeting with, focus group meetings that are gonna be taking place, and that's ongoing. Nothing else happening there. The electrical upgrade's still on plan. Everything's been taken care of. There's a 2-week shutdown coming in the latter part of the spring semester. It's all set. The the lab renovations and a nursing lab addition, apparently some construction documents that are going to be ready to be sent out in February/March for a bid. So I'm not familiar with what that project is, but the timing is good, March, February. But they're ready to roll that out. The other thing is that we're working on, Carol and I are working on, is we have an opportunity to sublease the Newark facility for 2 years to the Department of Labor. It'd be great to have them with us. It would be great to offload a little cost. It comes with a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
A lot of complexity. So we're pushing that one to see how that works.
Does it come with costs as well?
No, this will be savings for us. They're gonna pay rent.
And they'll pay for whatever
Yes.
additional
All the-
logistical things.
Yes,
that
and
need to
that's the rub is they need some construction work to be done. And they want us to help get involved in that process of getting construction work done. And we don't really like it, but the mechanics are complicated. So we're gonna be working on that. And we can't spend too much time on it, but I hope within the next month, we'll be at the point where we'll know if we can do it. It'd be great to do it, offload some costs, but they'll pay us a little bit. And it'd be great to have them located with us, but it's just a 2-year arrangement. So when it's only 2 years, they're sensitive to how much money they're gonna spend and how far they're gonna get in, and we should be sensitive to that as well.
This is state
Yeah,
department.
hardly.
Can we access any of our congressional representatives to assist in this process, or maybe they're advocating?
Not yet. It's,
It's
I
mechanics.
talked to him about it.
Okay.
It's the mechanics right now. I think everybody's on board to go
Okay.
ahead, but dealing with the state contracting is.
Is there a
Real
reason?
education.
It's been addressed with our state, some of our state folks in terms of we need the help to ask for the help.
And you're with them tomorrow as well.
So, some of
Some
them,
of
and
them,
then,
yeah.
so we can talk about that then. And then as Ken's saying, I'm not sure how much it's a burden or what you're getting out of it. So there's an attempt to do it, but then you want to look at what the benefits are. And then you're talking about it for another 3 years, weighing both those together. So,
Okay, done?
So that was my question what is the rationale for just the 2 years? Was it because they have another site that they're
That's a
preparing?
great question. Our lease goes for 2 more years.
Oh,
So that they would love to sign a 5 or 10-year lease.
No?
But that puts us in the middle of making that a commitment for that length of time. And until the facilities master plan gets forward and we get to talk about this, and it's kind of not proven to be making long-term extensions of our footprint, if you will.
Right.
So it's complicated.
yes. But it's good to know that they have an interest.
Yes.
So, a facilities master plan that you just mentioned, focus groups, will there be a focus group for trustees?
Maybe you know that one.
We talked about that. I don't think there was one, or
there's 2 things we do. I talked to Deborah, Deborah knows, we already have representation on the committees. I would suggest there's 2 ways to do this. The board could have a special committee, but I would recommend instead that we put you in other focus groups and have the discussions supplanted into the other focus groups.
Okay. Thank you.
Final questions? A resolution and some information?
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. I was a little bit shocked when I saw the size of that one, and then I took a look at the overall budget, and my thought was, where are we gonna pay for $30,000 worth of stuff? But then I took a look, and the context is this. The budget line for this is for the academics and student affairs is 190,000. They've spent 33,000 so far this year. They have ample space in their budget within their expenditures, and the justification is one that I can't address. But from a budget standpoint, they're well within their budget spending this with this add-on.
Okay.
This add-on.
Trust the process. Questions, Joan? No? Okay. And there was one, let's see, informational lawn mowing.
Yeah.
Home lawn in Geneva.
Come along, and that's for information, and the issue there was the size of the increase, which was like, it's a small increase dollar-wise, but big increase percentage-wise. I had that opportunity to beat Kathy Ahern up a little bit on her increase.
Gasoline and diesel are up, I guess, right? So there you go.
Which was, that, I mean, that, you know, the point is, we can't experience increases like this across the board, we gotta get savings somewhere else, but there's not much we can do about this.
Thank you, Ken. Jeff, final question.
Just a question about the music studio console equipment. I don't have any trouble with the resolution, except, I was just wondering, the second whereas talks about that the apparent low responsive / responsible bidder that met specifications is acceptable. My question is, was it the low bidder or is it somebody that was higher
I
but
can't
met the
answer that
specs? I was just curious.
question. What the resolution says it was a low bidder, right?
Well, it says
It
the
says-
apparent
And there's-
low responsible bidder that met the specifications is acceptable. Doesn't necessarily say it was the
It
low
was the
bidder,
low bidder.
that's all.
And there are three
And there were
Three
of them,
companies
so
listed.
I'm just curious as to whether, in fact, the most responsible bidder was also the lowest
Also the
bidder.
lowest bidder, yeah, I can't answer that, I'm sorry.
All righty. Thank you very much, Ken. It is 5:40. I look for an adjournment and a second, please. Thanks, Jeff. Second? Thanks, Rich. Madam Chair, I give you back,
I adjourn.
give you back 50 minutes. And Rich
Okay.
seconded.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is 5:40. We will start the regular board meeting at 6 o'clock. Please help yourself. it okay to start, Cheryl? All right. Um, I would like to call to order, please, the February 1st Board of Trustees meeting for FLCC. And the first part of our meeting today.
Do you want to see yourself up there or not? Yeah. You do want to see yourself?
Oh, I don't care. Okay. The first,
No, they're seeing it, but you're just.
Okay.
the first order of business will be public comment. This gives an opportunity for anybody to make some comments to the board. If you are doing it online, we would ask you to please identify yourself. Is there anybody at this time that would like to make a comment? Seeing no one, I will move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Excuse me, the Board of Trustees resolution. And this was in your packet. Are there any questions on the SUNY Board of Trustees resolution? All right, seeing none, I will ask for a motion.
Rich will move.
Rich,
George will send.
George second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next will be the approval of the consent agenda minutes and resolutions. May I have someone move to accept those?
I'll move that.
Steve moves
I'll second.
and Jeff is second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Is there any old business that anyone would like to bring before the board at this time? Is there any new business anyone would like to bring to the board?
So our start time for the retreat is 8:30-ish, 9-ish, 8-ish?
Either 8:30 or 9,
Fine.
4 hours long.
Great, thanks, that's all I needed, thanks.
And I'll be getting out the agenda based on feedback that I got from everybody this coming week.
Good.
Chair's report. I'm on the committee as well as trustee Axel's for the master plan. And I have been pretty impressed so far. It's gone very smoothly, a lot of data. That hopefully will be able to have a real idea of where we're going in the future. A lot of data, of course, on population trends and all of that, which we know is not positive. But, they're doing a really deep dive. See,
So, not including staff, how many committee members roughly on the,
Say about,
14, I'm gonna say 15.
you've got 2 trustees, you have
Okay.
2 key faculty and staff members, the academic senate leader and Sarah, our head librarian and head of the professional association. Deborah's on for the cabinet, and myself from FLCC. And then you go around and you have a number of folks from the county, Tom Harvey, Dave Baker.
so Dave is there?
Yeah.
Only the sponsor county, none of our other counties? Right, okay, thanks. Thanks.
okay, any other, and as I said, it really, I'm impressed. They have included Monroe County in our discussion. But we have asked that they zero in more on our real service area outside of Monroe County. But they are looking at, of course, the job trends. And the job trends we really need to know in Monroe County because so many people from here travel to Monroe County to work. So we do have to include at least a discussion on that.
But it skews our data too. We had a good
Right,
discussion.
Right, we had a good discussion on that.
Good.
Right.
Can I ask one thing? I would be remiss when we were talking about committee members from college. Ken has been involved as well as Kathy Avery, so.
Oh, yeah, right, of course, yes. Tom Harvey too.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, president's report.
Stole my thunder, but I'll add. some
I'm
stuff.
sorry.
No, I'm just. In my report, I just want to highlight that the key personal updates, 3 key searches ongoing at cabinet level. Thank you to Sim Covington for taking on the role as the search chair for the Chief Human Resources Officer position. Thanks for Carol Abetis for coming back for more to support the CFO search. And there's some good work going on at that right now with some potential screening going on at the end of next week or starting at the end of next week. And Ed Kelty, also thankful for his work for the provost search. The window for preferred status closes on February 13th, and they're getting together shortly after that to start screening and activities with on-campus interviews at the end of March. I wanted to really highlight the new semester observation. You may not see it when you come in at this time frame, but if you come in the mornings from about 9 to 12, you're going to see what looks like almost normal as it was prior to March of 2020. And it's been really heartening to see that and to see all our students, because that's why we're here. And really thankful for that. And all the great work that it takes to prepare for a start of a new semester is really impressive to see that. You don't see it behind the scenes, but both faculty and staff have done tremendous work just to get to the starting point and then start to work on the work you saw from Sarah Whitman and so forth afterwards and back. So I just want to thank everyone in college, because it was a really good start to the semester in a lot of different ways, despite any challenges that we have. Also wanted to highlight the work that has to continue for the general ed curriculum mandate and DEISJ. It takes a lot of work for our faculty and some of our staff with leads from Ryan McKay, Deborah Orloff, and also Cassie getting involved. And I just want to thank those folks that are involved in that, because it is very time consuming. It takes a lot of effort to accomplish, and it will continue next year as well for the AAS degrees as it is this year for the AA and AS degrees. Just want to say thanks for that. There's a lot of great work. Speaking about continuing to develop relationships with the county, we had a superb meeting with the county, with probation department, and also the courts for conflict aversion court, I think it's called, and then also the regular court system. And they're very excited in trying to get connected to our GED, ESL, and our workforce development programs. If we can get that going, we'll expand that into the DSS programs as well, which was mentioned. And they offered yesterday and Friday to also move into Wayne County and gave us the right connections for that too. So another connection for our new campus, and we're doing things. It's what we should have been doing a long time ago, but you start with what you got. And as you heard before from Lewis, step by step, you just keep pushing forward. And I think that's very exciting for us.
What a wonderful portal or pathway for potential students. Is there any funding that might come with some of that? Did those discussions come up?
That's why you heard Mary Beth talk about how the county is one of the priorities of one of them is to get a
First
grant
student.
that links our efforts with their efforts. They do not have a grant writer. They have grant program managers, but we're working through those kind of things to help create those connections, because it's at least become clear, and Cristobal has said this now in two different meetings. One with the ad hoc committee, which had a great meeting but after our last board meeting, and then also in the master facilities planning meeting. And what we have to do is combine our efforts in terms of what economic development is. And it's not just bringing businesses in, it's creating economic vitality. And I think we're making good inroads in terms of creating that type of efforts that, quite frankly, many other counties already have. But you start with somewhere and keep building and keep building. It was really exciting to see how excited those folks were to take that to the next step.
I'm just curious. I mean, there used to be a number attached from a social service standpoint in terms of cost involved with a particular individual. I would think an investment on the county's part, an investment, I realize it's an expense, would be huge in terms of the return on that investment.
Absolutely. And that's why one of our next steps is asking the county to invest as well. So I think it's a starting point. I'm really excited, and just excited about it because of what our mission is. And our mission is to help transform lives. And there's constituents in this county, citizens in this county, that there's much more that we can do to help that benefits the individuals, the county, and the college in many different ways.
This might be our first time, right? I mean, some of the veterans on the board, yeah.
Discussions, yes.
Sorry, thanks.
And Ryan, go ahead.
Oh, and our new chairman,
Todd Campbell, that whole section of probation, diversion, alternatives to incarceration are really close to him. He's close to those concepts, and he'll give it a good ear. I hope our new sheriff has been involved too.
They have interest as well, we're trying to work on in terms of they're interested in nurses for interns to help in the sheriff's very interested in that, and Cassie's been involved a little bit with that, but we have a lot of work to go on that one now. Two other things very briefly, and one of them's linked to the county, that we are assuming the role as the law enforcement academy for Finger Lakes area law enforcement, FLIA, is what it's called, and so long time coming. But the first course will start in March, and what's very important is after this course that we get our curriculum aligned so that we could get FTE for having those candidates go through where they actually get credit and college credit while they're going through. And that's the goal for next year. And so, exciting, you'll see folks running that academy from March through October, starting up, and I think that's a good thing for college in many different ways.
Is it a micro-credential?
No, these would be actual college credits towards the
Okay.
the degree, criminology degree that we have, which is really good. And finally, we are just about ready to provide the economic impact study that was done. And I think it can be helpful for us with the county in terms of, you mentioned investment. Well, we are, we provide a return on investment that I think is important to demonstrate what that return on investment is to the economy of the county.
So that report has been worked on, and it's just about complete.
Yep.
Sometime within the next month or so, we might have a peek.
Yes.
Great.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nye.
One quick question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dana.
I was just curious about the SUNY, auto admit program. When did that start?
Well, like, Carol, you have, if you want to elaborate better, you can do it better now.
It's a new initiative. So it's really an expansion of the former SUNY guaranteed program when students find admission to a foreign school. Change is that they're really taking a closer look at the program. In the past, a student was guaranteed acceptance to a SUNY school, not necessarily a school of choice or a school of degree program. So with the auto admit, they're expanding it, so the student will be accepted to 3 SUNY, 2 four-year schools, and the local community college that is within the student's region, based on zip code. So this is a brand new pilot, and we'll see how it goes.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, committee reports, student trustee report.
So excuse me for not having a formal report ran. I had a lot of laptop issues and technical errors.
But all right.
But I do have stuff to report. So Jenny Ertl has been running the online student hub for a while now, and now Kelby Lawrence is expanding it into workshops to increase engagement of online students. And they're doing it in 5 different sections. One is social engagement, so the student hub. Number 2, they're doing how-to videos, so how to change your tire and how to do your laundry correctly. Number 3 is DIYs, so they're gonna do projects and fun crafts, and they'll send kits to the online students at home. And then number 4, they'll do gaming sessions, Dungeons and Dragons. That's getting popular again, so they want to do online Dungeons and Dragons. And then 5, career coaching and things like how to transfer and how to write a resume. And so they're opening this to not just online students, but all students, and anyone can join that. And on top of that, tomorrow is the involvement fair. And they opened up a coffee bar inside of Student Life, and a lot of students have been coming through asking about the involvement fair and clubs. And an observation I've noticed is that students are just so much more engaged than ever before, at least as long as I've been on campus. And I came in right in the middle of COVID. And also a lot of the sports teams have the most recruits they've seen since COVID. And I think that's really exciting to see all the hub and on campus, and that students are really engaged now. And the conservation department has the most interns ever applied. And unfortunately, now they have to deny that some of the interns, because they have so many, they had, I think, 40 students apply to 20 positions. And, but it's exciting though, all the engagement.
So things are definitely at an uptick.
Oh, definitely. And
That's good.
even like the spirit of students on campus, I've just, I notice it and I get around and I talk to them and they're just really excited this semester. They can't wait for the involvement fair and all the activities. And we're only like on the second week and they're all asking about it.
That really is very good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Jeff, anything on ARM?
No, happy on what Ken alluded to in terms of the audit in March.
Okay. Board development. Santa?
We do have a report.
Okay.
All right. So, we are going to make edits to the, trustee board development policy. Remember last year was the first read. We still haven't made the final edits to it. So we will have those final edits to you before the February board meeting, February 17th. And please provide feedback via email once you do receive the second read of that. And if we could, maybe during our retreat, take 5-10 minutes. I don't know if there's time in the agenda.
You are our bosses, just tell me.
If we could have 5-10 minutes just to do a final, is everyone okay with it, and sign off?
Yeah.
So that's the board development policy. The presidential succession plan is the next one that we will be working on. The first read will go out before the April retreat. Okay, and then we do have a committee meeting tentatively scheduled for February 17th after our retreat. We figure we're on campus anyway. We could just stay here if Don is available for it. That agenda is going to include reviewing the committee charge and deciding which policies to focus on for the fall retreat. That's what I had. Donna?
Thank you, Santa. The one request that we would like to make to you, Rod, is based on all of our work being geared towards student success and the wonderful presentation that Sarah did and the fact that we will have a student success component of the strategic plan. And based on the workshops that SUNY provided our trustees, Steve, George, Joan, and I were part of most of them, I think. Some of you may have joined at another point as well. The main request, or the main point that came across from both the Aspen Institute people who are presenters and supporting these sets of trainings for trustees, and Johanna Duncan Poitier, the SUNY Vice Chancellor, was the best thing that the Board of Trustees could do to support student success was to ensure that there was a student success policy. And we'd like to request that you designate the appropriate staff to put together a college student success policy so that we, as the board development committee, could take a look at the first draft and then give some input, and then that could be presented to the Board of Trustees. The reason we stated for having a policy is that you have now institutionalized student success into your college, regardless of any changes in governance at whatever level. So that this isn't a passing fad, it's not just something SUNY thought up. that this becomes incorporated into the very fabric of everything that you're doing, no matter who is on the board of trustees or in the cabinet or the president, et cetera. So we feel it's important. We're talking about it a lot. And as we move forward with a strategic plan that is going to focus on that, we'd like to ask you to prepare one.
I think what I'd offer to you is we can do it parallel with what we have coming out of the strategic plan, but then also link it to the different metrics that we've talked about in a number of the sessions of what are the expectations for what student success looks like. And I think we can link those two together.
Okay, great.
So what
Doesn't
I'm
have to
saying,
be-
instead of throwing it out right away,
Right.
I think it should be aligned also with how what we look at student success looks like. But it's different, but I think to do it parallel is important because we've already talked about what are the expectations. It's just putting that in a policy, but I would say, I think it's important to align it with also some of the work that will come out of what does student success look like from the strategic plan process.
That would be great. So that sounds like a policy and almost a procedure.
Well, I mean, sort of, what I want to be very clear, especially when we're talking about policy and procedure, this is a board policy that is talking about what are the expectations for success that the board expects are priorities for the college.
Yes, yes.
And I think those words, the way I just said them, are very important,
Exactly.
and have to be precise in what we're talking about here.
Right. We certainly don't want to make it restrictive.
I think it's based on, yeah, not restricted, but it's expectations, the board's expectations of what student success should look like and be measured as.
Yes.
So I think you answered the question I was going to ask, and that is from a governance standpoint, campus-wide, if you will. This becomes a board policy that may or may not go through a governance process.
May or may not, I would suggest that, and we've talked about this, that when we got to this point, that what do some of the constituency feel and to get their input for what that is. But this is the board's expectations for what success look like. Should it have input? Yes, I do believe it should.
So it starts as expectations before it becomes a policy. Expectations outline, if you will, focus.
I think we could take what we've discussed about in the past in terms of what is important for what student success looks like and making a statement. It's not about, it's about the board's expectations that the board, let's say the board believes that student success is important. These are the areas that we believe are important to be able to measure what student success looks like.
Yes, I agree with that.
Correct. And that was why I think we were hoping that a draft could be presented to the board development committee so that we could take a look at it and then we would share it with the whole board. Because it is, as you say, it's our expectations of what.
Yes, it's the board's expectations
Yes.
that we're requesting some input before going there. We have talked about what the metric should be for success on a number of occasions before. But the next step is what you just asked for is, okay, how does that fit into what a board wants to have as a policy of what the board expects for expectations?
But the timing needs to be informed by the strategic plan.
Yeah, I think it has
It
to
should,
be linked to the
it should,
strategic
it should.
plan.
When you say it doesn't have to, it should.
Yep.
Agreed.
So that is our formal request,
Got
to
it.
get that process started in whatever way you find that is most appropriate. It seemed like it should probably be drafted by staff so that we have a starting point.
Right. Sort of. We can do the work, but this is a board policy.
Yes.
Okay, so if it's a board policy, it has input from staff and entities, but it is a board policy.
board.
Which means that you direct me to do that, but it's not, I want to be very clear, this is a board expectation, which means that it is a board, in the role of the board and your responsibilities to provide guidance and expectations in the area of student success.
So might I suggest it come out of the development committee in terms of at least a draft?
Yes,
So that way it's
Unprovide
it's
draft
within the
to give
board.
to you.
yes.
Yes.
So we can provide support of that, but it's, what I'm getting at is, yes, we can provide support, but this is a board expectation of, in terms of your role and your responsibilities,
Right.
or what expectations are for student success.
But I think would, Donna, if I may, I don't, correct me if I'm not speaking for you. We need a little, we need some of the expertise as far as the metrics go and how it is currently measured, what those benchmarks are that we're working with to make sure that we're in alignment.
True, and we've provided those on 3 different occasions,
Right.
so we have them, and they've been refined slightly over time.
But you were saying that they may shift a little bit through the strategic plan.
Yeah, so I would say that
So we
you
would,
have standard, you want us, the college, to focus on, from a board perspective, to place a priority on student success for the vitality of the college. Okay, and as of the mission, because that's what you see, as well as taking care of the college in many different ways. And I want to be clear that you have to take care of the college in many different ways as well. But that you want to have something that provides a board perspective on what success, student success is. And that within that, it should be aligned with what's going on. I'm just saying, if we get it too far ahead, or right in the middle of starting a strategic plan.
Right.
Expectations for what student success will look like are pretty standard.
Yeah.
Okay, and which is those metrics we provided in the past. But I think it needs to be aligned in terms of how we put the student success together for the strategic plan. Does that make sense?
sounds like some back and forth going to be going on.
And that's, I think, where we've been is, should it start with us?
Right.
Should we start it with the college's information coming to us so that we have something
Exactly.
to work with? So
I think it's concurrent.
it's okay.
To some extent, but it should be, we want to make sure that we have a strategic plan that's being worked on right now. And that should help drive some of the activities. The other is, you've been saying for a while, or we've been talking about what are your expectations for what student success looks like based on the best practices and standard metrics that are out there that demonstrate what that is. So then you could make a statement that student success is important to you, amongst your other areas that are important to the college.
So in addition to what you already provided us several times, those of us that were engaged with the Aspen Institute.
Right.
I mean, there's, not 10, but there's 3 or 4 that bubble up to the top there that would apply, that could come from those board members that maybe participated in that draft.
Yep. I think it's important. I mean, I just want to be very clear that what you're talking about and what you've learned from the Aspen Institute is that you want to make a statement or a policy that talks about these are the board's expectations for what student success should either look like or be measured by. And it's most of it, what you saw from the Aspen Institute was how it was measured. So then you had an idea of how student success was going. You've been seeing it in different ways. You saw it today in different ways. Sure. Okay. So, and what you're really doing is institutionalizing at the board level, expectations of what student success are that we've been talking about and presenting to you in many different ways over the past couple of years.
To speak personally, I love the idea of a statement first that we all agree on before we jump to a policy.
Yep.
Not opposed to a policy, but would prefer to do that first and get it right as well as we go down this path, we have a new strategic plan to make sure that we haven't missed anything and there is some alignment.
Some of it doesn't necessarily have to be a policy. It could be a statement with what the expectations of what the board wishes to see. So I'm not sure it needs to be a pure policy, but
They were pretty clear.
there has to be, clear expectations. And I do think we've been talking about them, but we have not created what,
Right.
in your words, are now
Right.
what success looks like and what you wish to measure success by.
And that was actually, that came out of the Aspen Institute, the idea, and I recall when we presented on that was one of the recommendations, is that we have, I think the statement and the policy are very close, and you can turn that statement into the policy. Yeah.
But you start with a statement, yes, that has to be based, that is the board's, falls within the board's area of responsibility, and what your requirements are as a board. Starting with, what the board responsibilities are. And then have the right to create a statement that provides expectations to help guide the college. So what I would suggest then is that the board needs to go back to look at what are the metrics along while there's strategic planning process going on, because that will look at strategies. Okay, but you have always been looking at with the Aspen Institute, what are the expectations?
Right, it's the umbrella piece.
Right.
Any other questions, comments? Trustee Cass did submit a written association report. Do you have anything to add, Barb? Foundation, I don't have anything to add. Lewis, and getting ready for the Nursing Valentine's, it's the big
It's sold out.
sold out, and that's our big push right now. Donna, NYCCT.
Briefly, NYCCT has been really concentrating on advocacy efforts currently. It is an excellent committee. Thank you, George, for all of the work that you've been doing with that committee. The NYCCT Executive Committee met with the SUNY Board of Trustees Chairperson Meryl Tisch, which is a first. It was a Zoom meeting. I was invited. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, but the report that I got, it was a very productive meeting, and that we have a little bit more visibility statewide as community colleges, which is not unfortunately always been the case at SUNY. And there has been a huge flurry of meetings with our advocate that NYCCT hired on behalf of community colleges in New York State. So we have, there was a good 15 meetings, I think, on that list. It was being updated.
I was on 10 calls last week, so that's a half hour a call plus, so just that alone has been.
Our visibility has risen dramatically, and it is a very serious, concerted, combined effort with presidents and with SUNY. So that we're not leaving anybody out, but we are, for the first time in decades, probably being extremely assertive with advocating how community colleges are different from the four-year schools and why what we do is so important. And I think that's where any school that has an economic impact statement is going to be valuable, because the advocacy person, Andreas, and ACCT has been trying to make sure that every college is promoting their unique story. So whatever is economic vitality in your area and whatever is important in your student population, that those stories get told because that's what people want to hear when they're talking about money? George?
Well, I think one of the really interesting things, everybody knows in this room, I think, how a community college is different than a four-year college. I think what the legislators don't understand, and I think certainly Ms. Tisch didn't understand, is how the funding mechanisms are very different. That there's a lot of funding that there's a lot of costs that we bear that SUNY colleges, that does not fall in their increases. For example, pensions. I think I've got that right, Dr. Nine. So we are funding those on our own. It isn't coming through. So and I think it's raising some eyebrows. So I think we're starting to build a little wedge in there that says, yeah, maybe they are different. Maybe they're not just crying all the time. So it's been interesting. It's been an education for me. It's like drinking through a fire hose, but.
Can I ask some help then from this board, if you want, in terms of taking it up a notch for the advocacy, because those checked on the budget, thank you for letting us know, as we have a good conversation. We are not being treated as well as the others, other entities, and so
Could you
there's
define entities, please?
the four-year schools,
Okay.
the CUNY SUNY systems. You want to read it?
I'll read it off. This is direct from our budget. This is the higher education general fund spending net change from fiscal year 22 to 23. So what she proposes, state ops, 152 million. CUNY senior colleges, 170 million. SUNY and CUNY debt service, 89 million. Financial aid programs through the state, 189 million. Community colleges, 8 million. I see 8 million.
It also states in there that we got, and it's incorrect in my opinion, where we got a floor last year, and they said last year it was a 98% floor. It was not, it was a floor. So they gave us the floor. That doesn't indicate that there's an $8 million increase. It's not a 4% increase for, for the system in terms of state aid.
It's interesting, because a big number was presented, but it wasn't broken down like we did.
It's right
How
here,
many-
black and white.
How
Wow.
many accounts is
Say
that?
30.
30.
So
30 with
divide-
that FIT included.
And
So divide
we
the 30 and 8
more-
million, we're gonna, a couple $100,000.
There are more community college students in the state than there are four-year schools.
Yes.
But you take the big ones out, like FIT and others. I mean, that number gets even smaller, right? FIT's,
FIT, yeah, they're grading master's degrees at
oh,
the,
they are, okay.
yeah, but,
Wow.
even with 29 community colleges, we have a larger percentage of students than the four-year schools. We pay more out of our own operating budgets than the four-year schools do.
Yep.
For things, as George said, like pensions, and there's
Other
a couple other
contractual
major categories.
items, yeah.
So I guess the key is, start contacting the legislators and ask them the same that we started last week of doing this week. Please get with your Democratic counterparts and please, help us to be able to do things. And this budget that just came out, does not do anything. It's not as helpful for community colleges as it is for other aspects of SUNY.
And you should have received from NYCCT, the talking points, so that if
We
you're going,
distributed that a couple times,
Yeah,
actually,
so
Dr.
that-
Nye.
if you are
Send it
talking
updated.
to legislators, please include those points. And they have asked, the committee has asked, the NYCCT Advocacy and Government Relations Committee has asked that you don't add other things in there.
Yeah.
Even though you would like to, save that for your local people, if you have local issues or whatever. Just keep harping on the talking points.
Those three points,
Those 3 points.
the floor, 4%, and the 60 million.
So it's thank you for the floor so far, but the 4% is necessary.
Yeah.
Now, in the, this budget, it does provide, it's good for the society in our state. They're providing TAP for, workforce development programs for the first time. More details to follow. The devil is in the details and how much is actually put into that, but that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
But
That's-
support for the community colleges is not the funding. You can see it when you look at the report.
You-
You go online and find it yourself.
You will get some pushback on, well, students, there's less students, enrollment's dropping. But 90% of the costs within this institution are pretty fixed. We can't just eliminate Math 101. We have faculty. And as a
You can't get
result
rid of your
of the
library.
declines, New York State is in the top 10 most expensive states for tuition for community college in the country. And so your representative may not be proud of that. I would hope he wouldn't, or she wouldn't.
First, Lewis is raising his hand. Chair, guys.
Before you, your partner, navigate, like 9I, you to do one, I call it test run with one of our representatives. When we were in front of him and really spoke to a few, so I really heard interest. In front of them, it makes a bigger difference. People look at it and say, this is the reality.
No question.
Any chance there was Senator Cooney? Okay. So we have the talking points. I personally would love a template. We don't mind a template of a draft that we can then put our own name to. Yes, we all can word those talking points in, but to Donna's point, sticking to those talking points would be helpful. And certainly anything you might send us, we'll be more than happy to send to our representatives.
Now, we can send it again. What you did is you got a second one, so right now, the template is the funding floor. Thank you very much. It's in the budget.
Right.
4% state aid increase and 60 million for workforce development credit programs.
And it lays it out, and it lays out the
It lays
detail
out.
behind each of those 3
There's-
points, so it's pretty well.
There's the second, that's what I want to say. There's the boilerplate.
Right.
And then we've sent you the second, which has the details
Okay.
to go with that.
Penny, could you resend at least to me? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Appreciate
Might as well send it to all of us,
it.
yes. And is that funding for, again, just for this year, or is it a permanent funding for?
Looks like it's not permanent. It's just.
We've been asking for permanent, yeah, so.
Just a year.
And that perspective too, I mean, that's way lower than
It is
10 years
just,
ago.
and, you know, shame on us as a statewide organization that, we haven't been able to get our advocacy act together. We've tried over the last, certainly the last 8 years that I've been involved with it, but, the key was to actually hire a person who is on top of things constantly, and I think
He seems to be.
George has had more experience than him.
People that meet the legislators in the local borough
But just
places.
going in their offices, as Lewis said, it's getting right in front of them, and when you're getting in front of the LA legislative aid, they usually will drive the issue more.
And we all know, I mean,
The senator is just a talking head, you know?
Right.
These folks actually do the thinking.
They do
Lay out all this stuff for them. And we gotta get them. And it's amazing how many of these folks are product of community colleges.
Mhm.
So, I mean, they do have that direct.
Understand, yeah.
I was just gonna say that 8 million could be quadrupled or even 10 times. You wouldn't even know it
They still drop in the bucket.
Right.
in a statewide budget.
Yeah, I mean, if they.
80 million is nothing.
I just did the math. If that was distributed evenly over the community colleges, which you know it won't be, it's only $266,000.
Right.
So I would
Compare that to the
suggest-
4-year schools.
I would suggest that if you have the time, reach out to our legislators and more personal conversation as well. What's been lacking that other states have with the community college, it's not the lobbyists, but that's helping it starting. It's that the organizations were very powerful themselves, but it took that they were their own lobbyists. So if you go to some of the other states, Florida, for instance, is one of very powerful trustee organization and
State
also
level.
president organization that work more very closely together that were very powerful. We're kind of dispersed and it's more difficult, but I think it's time
This was
for-
the first year that we've been this
I
cohesive.
think this is,
Agreed. It's
we're
been
only at the
it's been a lot
beginning.
of work
It's gonna take years to get us cohesive like
It's been
that,
a long
but
time
it
coming
started.
here.
Yeah.
But you're light years ahead of where you were.
Well,
But just say as an additional step,
right?
if you want to send the legislators around, I'd be more than happy to attach our names to who we're going to contact and, as an action item.
Sure. We have time right
Yeah, let's do it.
now.
Just start it.
Yeah, no,
After the 1st of April.
this is why we're hitting all of those
And
folks
then,
right now.
don't just, I mean, we all know this, it just can't be that first initial time. There's got to be that second and third follow-up as well. They forget it in February, when all of a sudden it's, March 28th.
Yeah, it's, you have to do it a couple times, and then I would suggest, particularly from the trustee side, there are some key legislators that need to discuss.
Getting to know their chief of staffs,
Yeah,
that's where it happens.
Yep, exactly.
and I'm quite certain that, I'm going to assume that NICAP, the President's Group, will do this as well as NYCCT, that Andreas will put together more, meetings and
Right.
communications based on the release of this budget.
We've got 10 times the number of bodies than the presidents do. It's a lot of voices.
Well, what was encouraging, or maybe not disappointing, is when the chancellor's first couple speeches and so forth, King, I heard community colleges multiple times, I mean, 3, 4 times mentioned in his comments, not 10 or 20, but the fact there was a mention and an acknowledgement and recognition was, okay. So.
And give credit due. I'd say, follow the money, and, tells you volumes, but there was something that is seismic, and that is the TAP, however that works out, it's really robust enough to help provide for workforce development programs. Because that's what they're touting, is the workforce development side, they're not touting the education side, which they would tout for.
All right, so good, we got the tab now, it's the educational side we need to push, right? Yep.
Any comments for Donna? Questions?
Louis, did you have something else?
I was just waiting to see,
And I'll have a follow-up with you after the meeting about the trustee meeting with Tish. So
Thank you.
George, do you have a, report for student vote?
no meeting?
No meeting yet, okay, because the semester just started, okay. Is there any announcements that people would like to make? No announcements, all right, then I will ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Very quick, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're adjourned, thank you very much.
Oh. He's stuck on his record time.